Blood trickled down Zora Washington's face as she stared at her attacker through swollen eyes. The school hallway felt silent. Bradley Richardson smirked, unaware of the surveillance camera capturing everything, unaware her father, FBI Assistant Director James Washington, was already receiving the footage on his secure phone. Before we dive into this shocking story of racism, injustice, and the power of standing up for yourself, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves to feel safe at school, and subscribe to join our community fighting against discrimination. Now, let's go back to the beginning and see how this confrontation came to be and what happens when a racist bully picks the wrong target. Zora Washington carefully navigated the crowded hallways of Oak Ridge High School in affluent suburban Virginia, her books clutched tightly against her chest like armor. At 16 years old, she had perfected the art of being invisible, eyes down, steps quick, voice soft. As one of only 27 Black students in a school of over 2,000, Zora had learned that attracting attention usually meant inviting trouble. Her parents had moved to this district 6 months ago, specifically for the school's prestigious academic reputation and impressive college placement statistics. Zora's intelligence had always been her superpower, particularly in science, where she excelled beyond her years. While other teenagers dreamed of fame or fortune, Zora's aspirations were focused on medical research. Her bedroom walls showcased framed articles about groundbreaking cancer treatments instead of pop stars, and she often stayed up late reading medical journals most adults would find impenetrable. She had been thrilled when she learned about Oak Ridge's state-of-the-art laboratory facilities and their special partnership program with Johns Hopkins University that allowed exceptional seniors to participate in real medical research. The opportunity seemed worth enduring the social adjustment of being the new girl. What Zora hadn't anticipated was Bradley Richardson, a third-generation Oak Ridge student. Bradley moved through the school with the entitled confidence of someone who had never questioned his place in the world. The Richardson name was literally carved in stone above the school gymnasium that his grandfather had funded, and his father served as chairman of the school board. Bradley had maintained his position as presumptive valedictorian since freshman year, a fact he worked into nearly every conversation. With wavy blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and the chiseled physique that came from years of private tennis coaching, Bradley represented everything Oak Ridge celebrated: wealth, legacy, and privilege. The trouble began during the third week of school, when chemistry test results were posted. Mr. Peterson had a tradition of ranking the top 5 scores, and for the first time in Bradley's high school career, his name appeared in second place, below Zora Washington. At first, Bradley's response was subtle. He would accidentally bump into Zora in the hallway, knocking her books to the floor with a quick, "Sorry, didn't see you there," accompanied by a smirk that suggested the opposite. When study groups formed for the upcoming unit, Zora mysteriously found herself excluded, despite having the highest grade. Then came the whispers, just loud enough for her to hear as she passed in the cafeteria. Affirmative action experiment or diversity scholarship case? Each comment carefully calibrated to cut without crossing lines that would trigger official discipline. Zora wrestled with her response to these provocations. She had been raised to stand up for herself, to never let anyone diminish her worth. Yet she also recognized the treacherous terrain of being a Black girl expressing anger in a predominantly white space. Her mother, Natalie, had warned her about being labeled with the angry Black woman stereotype that could follow her for years. So Zora swallowed the retorts that burned in her throat and focused on what she could control: her grades. When the second chemistry exam arrived, Zora scored a perfect 100%, while Bradley managed only a 94. Mr. Peterson praised her publicly, suggesting she consider applying for a prestigious summer program at MIT. The look Bradley gave her that day changed from annoyed to something darker. The microaggressions escalated. A crude drawing appeared on her desk in homeroom, a monkey in a lab coat. Her gym clothes mysteriously ended up soaking wet in the shower. The word quota was written in permanent marker across her assigned parking space. Through it all, Zora remained silent at home. Her father, James, was rarely there anyway, his FBI work keeping him at the office until late hours, and when he was home, he often brought files and worries with him. Her mother had just started a demanding new position at a local hospital and was working overtime to establish herself. Zora told herself that their careers were too important to be disrupted by high school drama. She would handle it herself, excel despite the obstacles, and make them proud at graduation. Then came the notes in her locker, small pieces of paper with messages that crossed every line. Go back to the ghetto. Inward girls don't belong at Oak Ridge. Science experiment gone wrong when monkeys try to act human. That night, Zora cried silently in her bathroom, wondering if she could endure 2 more years of this escalating harassment. She didn't know that far worse was yet to come, nor that the forces that would ultimately protect her were much closer than she realized. Maya Chen noticed a change in her friend immediately after winter break. Since becoming lab partners in September, Maya had admired Zora's brilliant mind and quiet determination. Now that same friend was withdrawing her usual thoughtful contributions in class, replaced by silence, her lunch period spent alone in the library instead of their usual spot in the courtyard. After a week of being politely but firmly avoided, Maya cornered Zora in the girls' bathroom. "Something's wrong, and don't tell me it's nothing," Maya insisted, blocking the door. "I've watched Bradley Richardson and his cronies looking at you, laughing. What's going on?" Reluctantly, Zora shared some of what had been happening, though she minimized the severity and frequency of the incidents. Maya's expression hardened as she listened. "You need to report this, like yesterday. This is textbook harassment and it's against school policy and probably federal law." Zora shook her head. "It's not that simple. You don't understand how these things work." But Maya was insistent, and eventually Zora agreed to at least speak with Principal Whitaker. The meeting was worse than Zora had feared. Principal Whitaker, a slim man with thinning hair and perpetually pursed lips, listened to her account with an expression that shifted from boredom to skepticism. When Zora finished speaking, he leaned back in his leather chair and sighed. "Ms. Washington, Oak Ridge High School has a proud tradition of academic excellence and community. What you're describing sounds like typical teenage drama rather than targeted harassment. Bradley Richardson comes from one of our most respected families. His father practically built this town's business district. Are you certain you're not being overly sensitive to normal competitive behavior?" Zora felt her throat tighten. "I have the notes he left in my locker," she said, reaching into her backpack. Principal Whitaker waved his hand dismissively. "Anonymous notes could have come from anyone. Without proof connecting Bradley directly, there's nothing I can do. Perhaps you might consider whether your background makes you more likely to perceive ordinary interactions as racially motivated." Zora left the office feeling simultaneously numb and burning with anger. That afternoon, she learned from a sympathetic secretary that Bradley's father had personally donated to Principal Whitaker's failed political campaign for state senate 3 years earlier. The next day, Bradley's behavior grew bolder as if the meeting had confirmed his immunity. When Zora answered a question correctly in AP history, he loudly whispered, "Playing the race card with teachers works every time." His group of friends, mostly wealthy athletes from families with long Oak Ridge legacies, began to emulate his behavior. What had been one person's targeted harassment expanded into a coordinated campaign. Connor Matthews, Bradley's tennis doubles partner, started making loud comments about affirmative action whenever Zora entered a room. Heather Williams, student council president, and Bradley's on and off again girlfriend organized study groups that explicitly excluded Zora while announcing them within her hearing. The harassment became more public, with Bradley's comments now thinly disguised as jokes. "Hey, Washington, do they have advanced chemistry where you're from, or just basic meth cooking?" he'd call across the cafeteria, loud enough for everyone to hear, but carefully calibrated to maintain plausible deniability with teachers. "Just joking around, right?" The constant stress began affecting Zora physically and academically. She developed insomnia, often lying awake replaying humiliations and imagining worse ones to come. Her perfect grades slipped to A's and then B+s as her concentration fractured. She dropped out of Science Olympiad, unable to face team meetings where Bradley and his friends dominated the conversation. Her mother, Natalie, noticed the changes but attributed them to normal teenage adjustment and the pressure of Zora's academic ambitions. "Sweetheart, you don't need to push yourself so hard," she said one evening, finding Zora asleep among scattered textbooks. "Your father and I are proud of you, no matter what." The mention of her father made her chest tighten. James Washington had built his career in fighting injustice, yet she couldn't bring herself to tell him about what was happening in her own life. What would he think of her weakness, her inability to stand up for herself? The breaking point nearly came during lunch period when Bradley accidentally spilled his chocolate milk all over Zora's biology project, a meticulously created cellular model she'd spent weeks perfecting. As the brown liquid seeped through her work, Bradley offered a theatrical apology that fooled no one. "Clumsy me," he said, eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Guess some projects just aren't meant to succeed." That afternoon, Zora happened to be retrieving a book from her locker when she overheard two teachers